Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT08, and BT08 offers us lots of new and powerful cards to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck is going to be a new iteration of Greymon Tribal. Well, I guess this is more specifically BlackWarGreymon, because BlackWarGreymon is an absolutely fantastic card to build the deck around in BT8, just because of all of the potential that this card has on how you could take the deck and spin it into multiple different directions. So you could play the deck more mid-range, you could play the deck more control, you could play the deck more aggro. It all depends on what you want to gain out of the deck and the different types of cards that you're going to be putting in to influence said gameplay styles. I'm a more aggressive player, so this is going to be my take on a more aggressive version of the deck. So without further ado, on to the actual profile. I'm going to be running 4 copies of Koromon. So Koromon is one of the best Digitama that we have to be working with for a Greymon based deck. So what this card is doing is it's acting as the draw engine, where it has this nice inheritable ability of when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon's name contains Greymon or Omnimon, then we get to draw 1 card. So it's just an easy way for us to swing with our Digimon to be able to draw extra cards with. And then as far as the 5th Digitama of the deck goes, it could really be anything you want it to be if you even want to run a 5th Digitama. I'm going to be running 1 copy of the brand new Digitama Gurimon. So Gurimon is just doing a very similar thing to what Koromon is doing, where it's just acting as another card draw engine, except the condition is a little bit different, where it's just when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has 6,000 or more DP, then we get to draw a card. So depending on what we're trying to utilize, it could be a little bit easier to trigger, but it doesn't matter. Both of the Digitamas are really fantastic at helping us draw additional cards, which is something Red was kind of lacking in the past. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Agumon. So this is the BT08 version of Agumon, and yes, this is a black card, but it doesn't necessarily matter because of how we want to use this card. So he could Digivolve off of a black or red Digitama. You're not really looking to utilize that at all because he has a really good on-play ability that we want to take advantage of. So his on-play ability states that we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck, add 1 Digimon with Greymon in its name and 1 Digimon with Dragonkin in its type from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So the Dragonkins that we're going to be running in this version are going to be on our top end, so it allows us to take a mid-stage card and a high-stage card, so that way we could try to be as consistent as we possibly can when we're trying to go up the stages, because we do have to actually go up the stages in this deck to be able to make a very powerful stack, and to use that very powerful stack to make our BlackWarGreymon or other Mega as powerful as we could possibly make him. And to add to the overall consistency of the deck, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Agumon. So this is the BT05 version of Agumon, and this is going to be another digging tool for us to use for his on-play ability to check the top 3 cards of our deck, and add 1 card with Greymon in its name and 1 card with Omnimon in its name from among them and place it into our hand, and the rest go to the bottom. So again, it's just trying to look for our parts and pieces to be able to easily and consistently climb up our stages with. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Agumon. So this is the 2nd promo version of Agumon, and this Agumon is going to be acting as the primary DP boosting potential for the deck. So he has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, while this Digimon has Greymon in its name, then it gets plus 2000 DP to basically make any of our Digimon that's Digivolving on top of them even stronger than they normally would be, to try to beat over the opponent's Digimon or beat over the opponent's security with. And for a very similar reason, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Agumon. So this is the Gallantmon starter deck version of Agumon, and it has another really good inheritable ability for us to take advantage of to try to DP boost our Digimon. Except the big difference is that the promo Agumon is a little bit better because almost everything on our higher stage is going to be a Greymon, so we could use that ability to actually attack into the opponent's Digimon, and it still has that plus 2000 DP. This Agumon has a nice when attacking ability, where when this Digimon attacks a player, then it gets plus 2000 DP, so it's only getting that DP boost when it's attacking the opponent's security, which is still pretty good, but it's a little bit more limited in terms of its overall usability. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Greymon. So this is the BT08 version of Greymon, and this is a black Digimon, but that's okay because he could Digivolve off of a level 3 red or black Digimon. So he is supposed to be used on our BT08 Agumon, so that way we could use our black line to actually go up the stages with, and this is a really good Greymon because base stat-wise, he does have that 6000 DP for Gurimon, he's a Greymon for Koromon, and he's a really good card to use more so for the defensive potential because he has this nice inheritable ability where during the opponent's turn, while you have a red Digimon in play, then this Digimon gains the blocker ability. So this isn't just limited to Greymons, although it's just really good and easy to run with Greymon because of just how this deck works, but giving our higher level Digimon the blocker ability could really shut out some of the opponent's aggro potential. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Greymon. So this is the BT05 version of Greymon, and this card is still just that good because of the tempo this card offers for the deck. So even though he can't Digivolve off of the black Agumon, that's totally fine. We have tons of red Agumons that this card wants to be interacting with. So it has a nice when Digivolving ability where if this Digivolved on top of an Agumon, then we get to gain 1 memory, effectively making him only 1 to Evo instead of 2 to Evo, which makes him a really good card to easily climb up the stages with. Then on top of that, he's a really good inheritable to have just because he's also going to be helping DP boost our Digimon to make them even stronger than the opponent's Digimon or security, where during your turn, while this Digimon has Greymon in its name or Omnimon in its name, then this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP, acting again as just another solid generic DP booster. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Greymon. So this is the starter deck Greymon from the Gaia Force starter deck, and this Greymon is just in the deck, well, 1, because he's a Greymon, and 2, his inheritable ability of just giving security attack +1 to deal extra damage is still just that good of an inheritable ability to have. So that way, when we're dealing security damage to the opponent, we get to deal some additional damage to try to push the game a little bit faster than what the opponent might want or be anticipating. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of MetalGreymon. So this is the BT08 version of MetalGreymon, and this card is an absolute powerhouse. Yes, he does Evo for 4 on top of a level 4 red or black Digimon, adding to the overall usability of our multicolored Digimon. And then on top of that, he has a really powerful native ability where when we Digivolve into him, we get to de-Digivolve one of the opponent's Digimon, and then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. So this is an absolutely fantastic card at trying to pick apart the opponent's field of their mid to low stage Digimon, and this is a really good card to counter something like Armor Rush, so that way we could de-Digivolve their Armor Digimon back into the rookie, and then delete the rookie. So this is just a very high usability control tool, on top of the fact that he has a very scary inheritable ability for our higher level Digimon to be playing with, where during your turn, while this Digimon has Dragonkin or Machine in its type, then this Digimon can also attack the opponent's unsuspended Digimon, allowing our Digimon to easily beat up theirs for doing absolutely nothing at all. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of MetalGreymon. So this is the Classic Collection version of MetalGreymon, and even though this isn't a red and black Digimon, it can still Digivolve off of red and black for your average cost for a level 5 Digimon. Then on top of that, we could actually think about using this card aggressively because he has a nice native ability of when attacking. When this is attacking a player, then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less, so it's just an easy way to pop some of the opponent's mid to low level Digimon depending on what they're using. Then on top of that, he has a really good inheritable ability of his own for our Dragonkins and Machines to take advantage of, where during your turn, while this Digimon has a Machine or Dragonkin in its type, then it gains the piercing ability, so that way we can deal consistent damage onto the opponent, whether they have a blocker or not. Next, on to the level 6s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of BlackWarGreymon. So this is the BT08 version of BlackWarGreymon, and this card is an absolute insane powerhouse. So this is the card that the deck is based around, and he has 2 really powerful abilities. So not only is he just a 2-color Digimon that could Digivolve off of both colors in case we want to change up our level 5 lineup, but his 2 abilities are really, really powerful, where when we Digivolve into him, if there's a red card in this Digimon's Digivolution source, then we get to choose an opponent's Digimon. If there's a black card in this Digimon Stitch Evolution source, then we get to choose a tamer, and for doing that, we get to delete any number of the chosen cards whose total play cost adds up to 6 or less. So this ability can hit a wide variety of targets. Most of the time it's going to hit mid to low level Digimon just because their play cost it has to be 6 or less, but we could use this to pop one of their tamers that potentially costs 3 and a rookie that also costs 3, and that's just a huge anti-tempo swing for the opponent because now they're going to have to be able to reset up their tamer. Even if we just pop a tamer, sometimes that's just really good because we could use some of our other cards to be able to control the field to try to keep their Digimon off the field, and once they don't have any Digimon on the field, we could use this card to start swinging with and be very aggressive with, because he also has a nice All Turns ability where once per turn, when one of the opponent's Digimon is deleted, we could unsuspend this Digimon, so that way we could use this in combination with the BT08 MetalGreymon to swing into the opponent's Digimon, and then because he deleted a Digimon, we get to unsuspend him to act as a solid blocker thanks to our BT08 Greymon's ability. And for using him as a blocker, when he deletes one of the opponent's Digimon, then he'll even be able to unsuspend during the opponent's turn, acting like pseudo reboot. So this card just has lots of combo potential depending on the type of cards that we're going to be playing with him and the stack that he could be having. And then as far as the last level 6 and Mega of the deck goes, I'm going to be running 2 copies of WarGreymon. So this is the BT01 WarGreymon, and I'm just using this card as a solid support card to try to push for game and deal extra damage onto the opponent as consistently and safely as we could possibly make him. So he has this nice when Digivolving ability where he'll just gain security attack +1, so that way he could deal extra damage, and we want him to deal as much damage as we possibly can in one turn, because he has a nice secondary ability where when this Digimon attacks the security and reveals an option card in the security, then that option card's security ability doesn't activate, effectively turning off options from the opponent's security from actually being a threat. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Crimson Blaze. So Crimson Blaze is a fantastic removal option that we're using mostly to actually try to shut out and limit some of the opponent's actions. So it has the ability where we could reduce its memory cost from our hands by 1 for each Digimon the opponent has in play. So if we use our BlackWarGreymon to basically wall out the opponent's Digimon, then Crimson Blaze can come in and start cleaning them up, because it has the main ability where we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less. Then your opponent can't play Digimon by card effects until the end of their next turn. The secondary ability is mainly what we're trying to gain out of the card to shut the opponent's ability to just have shenanigans come out of nowhere, so that way they have to play a little bit more fairly, and sometimes their deck might not have that ability to play fairly, thus shutting them out. But if they are just trying to build a wide field, then this could just clean up that wide field of mid to low level Digimon, so that way we could try to mitigate what the opponent is potentially trying to do to get around our big wall. And then this card also has the nice security ability where we get to activate its main, so it's going to be a threat no matter where it is. And then the last option I'm going to be running is going to be 2 copies of Red Memory Boost. So as far as the option lineup as a whole, you could kind of customize it to be whatever you want it to be. I just like the fact that Red Memory Boost helps with the deck's overall consistency thanks to its first ability, where we get to check the top 4 cards of our deck and add a red Digimon from among them into our hand. So even though we are playing a couple of black Digimon, the majority of our deck is red, so we're always going to have viable targets. Then on top of that, we also have the ability to try to use this card to be more tempo efficient, because its delay ability states that we get to gain 2 memory at a later turn from whence this card was casted and put it onto the battlefield. Then its security ability puts it onto the battlefield, so that way we could use the delay ability to gain said memory at a later turn to make even more powerful and efficient plays possible. And then lastly, onto the tamers, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Marcus Damon. So Marcus Damon is just one of the best red tamers that we have to be working with for a more Greymon specific deck. So this is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixer, where if we start our turn with anything less than 3 memory, then he'll always hard set us to 3 memory to try to make our plays as efficient as we could possibly make them. Then on top of that, he has a nice upside where during your turn, when one of your Digimon with Greymon in its name attacks, then we get to suspend this tamer to gain a memory, so that way we can make even more powerful follow-up plays with. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Nokia. So you can't run a Greymon tribal deck without Nokia because of how important her ability is. So for being a 3-costed white tamer, she has the on-play ability where we get to play an Agumon or Gabumon from our hand for free. So it doesn't necessarily matter what they are as long as they are just an Agumon and just a Gabumon. And in this deck, we're obviously having a whole bunch of Agumons with some solid on-play abilities, so Nokia can combo with those to make even more powerful plays possible. So ideally you could play something like BT05 Agumon to fish out our Greymon, and then use our Greymon to Digivolve into right away to pass the turn, or potentially not pass the turn because of her secondary main ability, where when we Digivolve one of our Digimon into a Digimon card from our hand with Greymon, Gurimon, or Omnimon in its name, then we could suspend this tamer to reduce the memory cost of that Digivolution by 1 to make evolving into our higher stages even more efficient than they normally would be, making Nokia just one of the best, if not the best tamer in the deck to be playing around with. And then there's so many options of various other cards that you could run in the deck, it's actually a little bit daunting and astonishing on how fleshed out Greymons are as a whole. So if you wanted to, you could run BT01 Agumon to help dig out your tamers, and again, this is a good combo play to play with Nokia to try to find more Nokias in our various other tamers. We could use Gaussmon as a good anti-meta / floodgate card to stop the opponent from reducing their Digivolution costs, which is still going to be a thing that could happen. Then we even have the Bond package we could try to play around with, just because, again, it's another solid Agumon, and Tai has some good Agumon and Greymon based synergies, and Bond is just a good level 7 to try to clean shop with. Then we even have the very first promo Agumon if we wanted it to try to help control the field and play a little bit more control-y, just because we could use this in combination with Nokia to be able to play it for free off of Nokia to get its on-play ability to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. Then if we are just looking for a stereotypical DP booster, we have the starter deck Agumon to just generically give whatever we're Digivolving on top of it, plus 1000 DP. Then we do have WarGreymon from BT04 to again try to be more control-y, because we could use his Digiburst ability and the Digiburst Agumon to be able to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less to again try to control their mid to low level Digimon. And speaking of WarGreymon, so we even have the Gallantmon starter deck version of WarGreymon to act as a good security threat to end security Digimon to pop out for free when he's checked in our security, and again, try to delete the opponent's mid to low level Digimon that's 4000 DP or less. Then if we wanted to be even more aggressive, we could run the promo Greymon, so that way we could use the fact that we're playing nothing but Agumons on our low end to be able to give him security attack +1 to be able to deal a lot of potential damage relatively quickly and early with. And then we even have something like Cyclomon if we do just want to try to play a little bit more into red and black and try to make our evolutions a little bit more consistent because of that. And on top of that, this card also is a Dragonkin to synergize with our black Agumon to make that card even more usable, on top of having a really good generic inheritable ability where it just adds even more control elements into the deck. We also have MetalGreymon Alteris mode to try to take advantage of with his different ways that we could evolve them, and being another card to not only DP boost as a good inheritable, but to try to control the opponent's field when we Digivolve up into him on top of one of our other MetalGreymons, which we have a lot of MetalGreymons to take advantage of. One of the other MetalGreymons we could try to take advantage of to be able to play our tamer or gain some additional memory relatively easily with is going to be the BT07 MetalGreymon, with a nice inheritable to also gain memory when we're deleting the opponent's Digimon, which we have a lot of potential ways of doing in this style of deck. And we could even think about playing around with Megadramon, just because it's another card that's playing around with the 2-color aspect very easily. Even though it does have to be on the field in order to be treated as a black Digimon, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's just another easy way to play around with 2 colors while having a generically good ability to try to DP boost our Digimon. But if we are trying to play around with multicolors, then we could also think about running Chimeramon, just because the Rainbow Evolution for 4 is still pretty good. We could stick even more inheritables underneath him to be able to utilize that on top of his Jagras potential or DNA Digivolution potential to try to help control the field, while also being another aggressive Digimon on our levels 5 slot we could try to take advantage of. Then we do have a slew of different level 6s that we could play around with to support the new BlackWarGreymon. So we could run something like the BT08 BT8-002 BlackWarGreymon in combination with the BT08 MetalGreymon to be able to basically constantly attack the opponent's Digimon to basically wipe their field at all times, posing a huge threat for the opponent, on top of an alternative way to be able to play the card in case we do just need to hard slam a body on the field to get the ball rolling. Then if we want to try to play aggressively slightly different, then we even have the promo BlackWarGreymon for his Digiburst potential to be able to multi-swing, so we could line up a really powerful play to be able to deal lots of damage with this card relatively quickly. And speaking of being aggressive, we could also think about playing the Classic Collection WarGreymon for its Blitz ability and the fact that we could try to delete the opponent's blockers if they have any. And if we are afraid of the opponent's Digimon being a little bit bigger than what we want, then we could even think about using the promo WarGreymon to try to delete the Digimon and constantly delete the opponent's mid to low level Digimon. And like I said, if you are playing around with the Bond package, then we have Bond of Bravery as a really good card to try to act as a good game finisher, to try to deal lots of damage onto the opponent relatively quickly and control their field. But if you do want something a little bit easier just to try to end games with, you could run a hybrid, or you could just run Blitz Omni as that surprise factor to just swing with something unexpected right away with. And because we also are in black and playing around with a little bit of black, we could even think about playing Omnimon Swart Defeat and something like Matt and Tai to be able to deal lots of damage with our various different Omnimons, and we could even think about running Omnimon X Antibody also if we are going in the more Zwart D direction. Then we have a slew of different removal options for the deck to take advantage of, so if we wanted to, we could try running Gaia Force, we could try running Dark Gaia Force, we could try running various removal options in black and red, like Trident Revolver, Iron-Fisted Onslaught, so on and so forth. There's just a lot of control elements in option form for this color pairing to be playing around with. But if you wanted to be a little bit more aggressive, we do have various boost options to take advantage of. So we do have something like a Delicate Plan to turn off the opponent's options and security. We could use something like Zubagon Punch to give blocker and reboot alternatively for our Digimon being relatively large, which we can make very easily happen. And we do have something like Lightning Joust as just another cheap alternative to be able to boost and deal some extra damage with. Then we have a slew of different tamers that we could try to take advantage of. If you don't feel like running Marcus, we could run Tai just because we could line up a big stack and try to punch the opponent's security super hard with. We could run Tai from BT06 just because it's interacting with Agumons and Greymons, and if we wanted to try to line up that bond play, we could do that as well. Then we even have Hero as another card to take advantage of, and same thing with Yo Lee from BT08 as just more tamers to try to help gain some memory and act as a good memory fixing tamer while boosting and trying to control the opponent's field. But this just goes to show that there's just a lot of potential that BlackWarGreymon and Greymon Tribal has, just because there's lots of different Greymons that we could be interacting with, all depending, again, on what you want out of the deck. This is just my base example or core or shell for a more aggressive style of approach using a more red low end and do different things, all because of two-color Digimon and the Greymon support as a whole. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.